hopefully this will work okay. So I'll see what happens. Hopefully we're streaming now. I don't know if this is going to be choppy or not, so we'll see what happens. What a pain in the butt. It's just, you know. Let me see if I'm live everywhere. So far, everything's all right on kilobytes per second. So we'll see. Let's see if we're on YouTube. Hello, everyone. So, and there's my dog. So. Hello, everyone. So, and there's my dog. Okay. Hello. So, I have a dog named Frodo. And he is just very rambunctious and tried to eat my body pillow earlier today. So that's a thing that's happening. All right, so we got on Periscope. We're on YouTube. I'm pretty certain. Hello. I'm pretty certain we're on Facebook. I'm gonna guess we're on Facebook right now because everything is nuts. I've been trying to do Streamlabs for all morning, and Streamlabs is just, it's being a butt. It's being a butt. And so I'm not certain if I'm going to continue to use Streamlabs. All right, so we've got, I'm on Facebook, everything's up on Twitch. All right. So, hello Creaky Blinder, hello Reese. Hello everyone. The gang signs on the left. You mean the image? That's, oh boy, there's my dog again. 50 nerd points. Belk or bitter leaf? Oh, I don't remember that one. I've read the books, but it's been a while. Okay. Oh, so hopefully this is going okay. So I'm going to have to call on the tech lords in my life to help me when I'm streaming in the evening, because apparently our my This Week in BS was very choppy with video. So I'm going to have to call on some more tech savvy individuals who are really good at this live streaming thing to help me out with that. So today we're talking about human sexuality. That was one of the topics on the polls and was something people had voted for, and they also suggested it. And so this one was one that I did because I had a patron go, I really, really, really want you to talk about human sexuality. So patrons on my patreon.com, I do shows, you know, and if they have like a suggestion, like I want to do this, like I do it. So let's go ahead and get started. Yay! Hey guys, all right. So today we are going to talk about human sexuality. So this is a thing. So let me get this up and going. So essentially what we're going to talk about, the types of human sexuality. We're going to talk about what influences human sexuality and how does society affect human sexuality. So we're going to touch a bit about, and there's still a lot of emerging research associated with this, but this is essentially, I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown here. So this is what we got. And I'm not covering up the graphic. Yay. All right. Howdy everyone. So essentially what we're looking at with human sexuality it's a spectrum. It's not binary. And so there are people who seem to think that sexuality can only be like cis heterosexual. So we need to make it clear that we're not talking about gender in this episode. I have talked about gender versus genetic sex in a completely different episode, and you can check it out. I get into the details of all the different types of genders, all of this, the associations with that and such. Oh, thank you, Reese. Okay, well, you know, sexuality is a spectrum, and orientation may or may not change. Experiences could have an influence on sexuality, as well as environment. Childhood, rearing could have an influence, could influence it. Genetics, there is a stronger role in genetics, kind of pushing towards that. And there's some research that are looking at fetal development as having a possible influence on sexual orientation. So, boom, there's our chat. So, humanist. Oh, you're a humanist. You're straight, but you don't care what others do as long as they don't push their lifestyles on me. I think that's fair. As long as you're not hurting anybody else. I don't understand why it is that people have such strong opinions on what sexuality needs to be. And they're sitting there, think of the children, you know, but I think it's kind of also rooted in this idea that sex is only meant for procreation, which if we were to look at the numbers for that, if it was solely for procreation, there's absolutely terrible statistics about getting pregnant. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So sexuality is pretty interesting if you haven't checked it out. Now, how do scientists study human sexuality? This is kind of important. They do it through various different types of studies. They look at genetic influences, you know, so there's a little bit of molecular studies done by comparing the expression and changes in the genetic code of people who are gay or straight. Twin studies provide insight, as some twin siblings can differ in sexual orientation. Now, twin studies are important because they allow scientists to study both genetic and environmental childhood factors to determine what influences sexuality. Kind of enjoy getting hit on by the same sex, just saying. Yeah, you still got it, right? Yeah. Sexuality is confusing. You're right, organized chaos. Sexuality is confusing. But here's the thing. If sexuality was exclusively genetic, then all monozygotic, aka identical twins, would be of the same orientation. We know this is not the case. Scientists are looking at rearing, but also fetal development, in order to find further evidence as to what influences sexuality. Now, some scientists believe maternal hormones can have an effect on brain development of the fetus, which can in turn influence sexual orientation to gay or straight. There are also some studies that they've been doing on the effect of anxiety, particularly separation anxiety, and how it appears in early childhood, as in also its influence on sexual orientation. There is evidence to show that sexuality also runs in families, but only siblings with similar genes. Now, there have been adoptive studies, but they don't really suggest or nurture environmental effect on sexuality, but of course, more research is important to fully understand it. But what if the identical twins are gay for each other? I don't think that's a very common thing. And if it's not extremely common, then that's probably not something that scientists would actually study for a particular type of sexuality. So, yes, if it's the same, yeah, that's incest. I'm pretty certain there are studies on incest, but it's not necessarily something that's associated with homosexuality. I think that's a different thing altogether. So, all right. So epigenetics. So somebody mentioned something on epigenetics. That's where you have environmental factors that affect gene expression, not necessarily the code. So that's something that you have to take into consideration. And I was looking into that, especially with homosexuality versus heterosexuality. Now there is something within genetic code associated with there being homosexual tendencies, but whether or not the expression of the gene actually occurs is something else altogether. So when you're talking about epigenetics, you're looking at gene expression. You're looking at whether or not a gene is expressed. For instance, you could have the gene associated with diabetes, but never actually have it expressed. You may not actually get diabetes. So just because you have the gene doesn't mean you're actually going to be diabetic or gay or something along those lines. And one important study that they did was the twin studies for NASA, where you had the twin in space and the twin on Earth. Now, apparently, being in space does play a role on gene expression. So when they went through, and you can check out on the NASA website on their twin studies, apparently being in space does shut off certain genes to where they don't express. And I haven't looked at the recent updates on that, but they had a very hard time getting, and the twin in space, it seems like some of those genes were never turned back on. Hey, Rock Lover, I did pin your comment. You're proud of that. Yes, if you've not checked out This Week in BS with me and the lovely Katie Joy from Pathios, we will be doing that every week. I have to iron out a few of the technical difficulties, but we talked about the vagina on Thursday and all of the bad woo that women seem to do with their lady bits. So there you go. Check that out. My dad was gay. His only nephew was gay, and I'm not gay. Well, you know, it does run in families, but that's okay. Hello, Nonazilla. Hello, my Twitch peeps. All right, so when we're getting into what scientists actually study, it's important to note that genetic studies may focus on a gene being present, but environmental factors also have an effect on whether or not that gene is expressed. Epigenetics. It was a fun video. Yay! Linkage studies focus on the presence of the gene and the expression it has on behavior. This is a bit more taxing research in the research world, in that finding populations who have the gene and whether or not it is actively expressed, i.e. influencing sexuality, that makes it a bit more difficult to study. But ultimately, sexuality is inborn, can change, but it isn't a choice per se. It's a part of who you are. There is a lot of research that dives into the straight versus gay world, but nothing yet substantial in other areas of sexuality. For instance, bisexual, asexual, aromantic, heteroflexible, pansexual. Sexuality is not so cut and dry. So what are these types of sexuality? I was digging around preparing for this show. I found a really good informative website. It's the University of California in Santa Barbara. Their website is excellent. It discusses sexuality, influences on it, societal impact, and educational resources to aid in awareness, as well as boosting literacy when it comes to sexuality. I found their graphics and information quite useful. So go check out their website after this particular stream, and you can get more information on it. All right, so one of the graphics that I found, and so I'm gonna switch it over to my big monitor so you can kind of see what that looks like. So this I found to be pretty useful. So while sexuality is not binary, it really isn't, there are two categories we can use for educational purposes to describe the different types of sexuality: monosexual and plurisexual. Mono is attracted to one gender. Pluri is attracted to many genders. You can have multiple genders and multiple sexualities. And gender identity, it's important to note that gender identity is completely different from sexual orientation. So it's important to kind of note that's those two things are different things. So the androphilic versus gynophilic. So let's have a look a bit at that. So androphilic versus gynophilic. So that's labeled based on person's object of attraction, whether it's masculine or feminine, masculinity or femininity. Now, a person's sex or gender, you can have male, female. There's the homosexual, heterosexual, binary type of thing, the object of attraction. That tends to be customarily what people focus on. They don't focus so much on all the different other things that we have in sexuality. We have pansexual, bisexual, demisexual, asexual, aromantic. There's all kinds of different things, and people can be more than one. You don't have to be one particular thing. That's the beauty of humanity. We have a massive diversity, not only in the way that we look, but also in what our preferences are. And that's kind of a really cool thing. I think people just don't even think about that as much as they should. Okay, then there's sapiosexual, the attraction toward a person disregarding physical aspects like gender. Yeah, you know, you have sapiosexuals that are inherently like attracted to mentality, you know, intellect, which is kind of cool. So the androphilic is attraction to men or masculinity. Gynophilic is attraction to women and femininity. And people can be both. You can be both androphilic and gynophilic. That would be our bisexuals to a degree, but it's a bit more complicated than that. Now, the types of sexuality vary, and people can identify with multiple types, just like multiple genders. But as a reminder, gender has nothing to do with sexual preference. Personally, I'm pan and gender fluid. Yeah, so pansexual, we're going to talk a bit about what these individual sexualities are. And so you can have multiple gender identities, and you can also have multiple sexualities. So there's not one particular way. It's like, I have to be this one thing. No, you can be multiple, and that's completely okay. Don't tell me what to do. Oh my goodness, Andy. So we can have multiple genders and multiple sexuality. So here is a really neat little infographic that we have. You have androphilic, which is attraction towards masculinity. You have gynophilic, which is attraction to femininity. So here's gynophilic. And then here we have ambiphilic, where the person's sex is not specified. Now, if we're breaking it down into homosexual, heterosexual, and bisexual, we can also get into gender, where we're dealing with intersex, which, if you're not familiar with intersex, you can check out my episode on gender versus genetic sex on my channel, youtube.com/ScientistMel. So, let's see. I'm a sapiosexual and demisexual. Well, we're going to get into those too. So we have ambiphilic, bisexual, intersex. They kind of fall right here in the middle. We have ambiphilic, bisexual male. We have androphilic, homosexual male. Gynophilic, homosexual female. We can have androphilic, heterosexual female. Gynophilic, heterosexual male. And then we've got bisexuals kind of falling in between here. But I need to kind of help you keep in mind, this is just focusing on gender attraction, okay? Like whether or not you're attracted to masculinity or femininity and what you identify as. That's that. This is by no means the individual of how it has to be for sexuality. I have something else for that where we're going to talk about that. So you're saying, I don't know what's going on in the chat here. So let's catch up on the chat. So we're talking a lot about that. Okay, so I have too many fans. Wow, so sexuality is a spectrum. Who knew? I know, right? And apparently heterosexuality between, exclusively cis men and cis women is the only thing. Now, if you are curious about gender, I mentioned before I did do a show just on gender identities and how gender and genetic sex work. So, and all of the different, you got intersex, and you have all kinds of, that's a spectrum too. But sexuality orientation has nothing to do with gender identity. They're completely different. So you can check that out on my channel, youtube.com/ScientistMel. Random stream. Yes, welcome, JackedBro918. Spooderman. Yes, this is Spider-Man. I got it from Universal Studios Hollywood, this coffee mug. And my coffee is cold now. Boo. Alright, so carrying on with human sexuality. It is a spectrum. So I have a lovely, lovely graphic to help you with that. Here we go. Now we're going to do the breakdown. And you know what? As we grow as a society and as we learn more, we could possibly add a whole lot more to this particular list. So, let's see. Aromanticism. Aromanticism is where you don't feel like you have to have a romantic connection with somebody in order to engage with them sexually. So that's aromanticism. And now we're getting into asexuality. I had an interesting exchange with somebody on Facebook who said that they didn't need sex because they loved God, and that sex and sexuality is a temporary type of love for people. But I asked him, are you asexual? And so he essentially doesn't have sex. Here's the thing, if you have no desire to have sex, you are asexual, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Nobody needs to force you to have sex. Just because you don't want to have sex, there's nothing wrong with you. That's just your particular preference. And if you identify as somebody who does not engage in sexual activity and who does not want to engage in sexual activity, has no desire for that, that's asexual, and that's absolutely okay. Bisexuality are people who tend to be attracted to both masculine and feminine individuals. Demisexuality is an individual who has to have a romantic connection in order to or an emotional connection in order to engage with individuals in a sexual manner. Heterosexuality is the attraction of somebody to your opposite gender. So if you are feminine, and you would be attracted to a masculine type, and vice versa. Kind of hard being an asexual who isn't aromantic too. Most people can't even wrap their mind around it, let alone make a relationship work under those conditions. Okay, so now that's pretty interesting. You can be romantic and asexual. That's the thing. You can want to have a romantic relationship with somebody, but not necessarily want to have sex with them. So you can have romantic asexuality. So it's pretty interesting with that. So, and I've known people who were romantic but asexual. They want to engage in an emotional connection with another person, but but they just don't have any interest in being sexual with them. That's a thing. Homosexuality, that's the attraction and want to engage sexually with somebody of your own gender, or your own, if you're feminine and you want to engage with another person that's feminine, then that's homosexuality, femininity. Pansexuality, they are attracted to people regardless of gender. There's no particular gender that they feel is the one that they want to engage with. So it's regardless of gender. So pansexuality, they're just attracted to people regardless of gender. And queer, that's a term that's associated with people who don't necessarily want to categorize themselves as any particular thing, whether it's bisexual, demisexual, heterosexual, homosexual, pansexual. They don't identify as heterosexual per se, but they also don't, maybe they're also in transition to a different sexuality. So sometimes people who are queer, they don't categorize themselves with any of these things. So rather than just say, I'm an aromantic pansexual, they just say, I'm queer. So that's one way that they can kind of get into that without having to categorize themselves. So let's catch up on some of the chat. Sapiosexual attraction acts as a multiplier on my sexual attraction. I can look at a man or a woman and feel a baseline attraction, but only when certain mental qualities present. I see. Sexual attraction without wanting to have intercourse, etc. So there's, I don't know if there's a sexual attraction, then that's still kind of a sexuality. You may want to have a romantic connection where you can fall in love with a person, but not be sexually attracted to them. That would be a romantic asexual. So that would be something, Nona, that there's kind of, if it falls within that type of category. Personally, I am a sapiosexual to a degree. I do like to have, I want to be involved with somebody who stimulates my brain on an intellectual level. It's really difficult, so some people can be like, oh, I'm attracted to super manly men, and there's like super masculinity type. I've found myself to be initially attracted to certain types of people, and then when I sit there and I start talking to them, I realize they haven't got a thought in between their ears. They're just not intellectually engaging for me. I'm like, yeah, that's a deal breaker. So there are people who are attracted but unable to have sexual interaction. People with severe OCD, for example. Well, then that's something else. The sexual attraction is there. It's just they stop short of that because of other things that are happening. If they have obsessive compulsive disorder and are unable to engage because they worry about, or if they have extreme anxiety, those are other things that doesn't necessarily define their sexuality, but it has an effect on it. So that might be a thing. So yeah, matching of minds is kind of important. And see, that's the thing, I can find just about anyone inherently interesting, and if they're able to engage on some kind of level, or even if they're an artist or something, I can sit there and I can be involved with that, and we can share an intellectual heavy discussion about art, and I'm a science person, but that's still a good, it's a good working thing for me. Engineering sounds like a good fit for you. Yeah, I think it kind of is. I do like engaging with engineers. They're pretty fun. So yeah, so that's kind of like that's one of those things. So sexuality is pretty interesting in how it works. So if you missed that graphic, here it is right here, all the different types. Aromanticism, asexuality, bisexuality, demisexuality, heterosexuality, homosexuality, pan, and queer. These are all the different categories that are associated with human sexuality. So it's important to note that it's not binary. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to catch up on the chat here. Sometimes the chat doesn't always pop up on my restream, so I'm catching up on this here. All right. Okay. There we go. I think I'm caught up on all this right now. So, okay. Cool beans. So, let's get back to this. Ah, boy, sexuality, guys. And I'm going to talk a little bit about an exchange that I had with somebody on the internet and stuff that really, really bothers me. Do you think people can find themselves defaulting to hetero? There's something when I've been looking through, and in that University of California, Santa Barbara website, talked about situational homosexuality. There may very well be situational heterosexuality. Situational homosexuality is where you are in a position for a long period of time around people of the same gender as you, and so your sexual needs start to become very strong, and so you engage in homosexual activity in order to meet those needs. One example of that is prisons. Another one is university, where you have girls who are just sit there like, well, I'm going to be gay until I get out of college, where people tend to start explore their sexuality, whether it be out of interest or out of necessity, and they start to engage in homosexuality in that particular case. So when dealing with homosexuality, you can have situational homosexuality. I would think you can very possibly have situational heterosexuality, and we have seen that to where we've seen men who are homosexual go in and marry women and have children. And to me, I think situational heterosexuality is a thing that exists, because we see that and then they come out later as gay. And I think it's also important to note you can change your sexuality, and that doesn't necessarily make it a choice, but it's still a part of who you are, and it may or may not change. Mel, how are you going to find a man on your intellectual level? Even if you do that, chances of them being okay in the jiggy department are going to be slim. Why are you taking on? How do you know I haven't already? I'm just saying. How do you know I hadn't already? Might have. Might have not. ScientistMel is a lady of mystery and intrigue. Right? Let me get my dark hat and my coat and walk around and be like, oh, I'm mysterious. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? I could dress like that, except be ScientistMel. You know what I mean? Oh, goodness. So we've talked about all the different types of sexuality. So how is it that society continues to oppress upon others this binary mentality of male-female only sexuality? This idea that sex need only be for procreation and nothing else limits the possibilities of human intimacy. Now, the standard odds of a woman getting pregnant in any given month ranges from 15 to 25%. All right? 15 to 25% are the standard odds of a woman getting pregnant in any given month. Now, if pregnancy was the only reason to have sex, i.e. just having babies all the time, women would be pregnant more often than not. This also does not discuss the fertility issues that persist within our species, where women have to plan, take medication, and modify standard behaviors in order to become pregnant. Something else that was interesting. Women who have had babies, if they breastfeed, customarily while they're breastfeeding, they can't get pregnant. Usually they don't ovulate and so there are some triggers here. So a woman could breastfeed for a couple years and not get pregnant again. Now that's not every case, but there's large populations of women that happens to. So are they just not supposed to have sex for those 2 years while they're breastfeeding their babies ever again? Are they not supposed to do that? So biologically speaking, sex is not just for procreation. It is connection between people. There are other benefits of sex that completely are negated by this solely for procreation argument, let alone the small odds that pregnancy can occur in any given month. So what are some of these health benefits of sex, do you think? All right, so what are some of these benefits? Let me pop this up over here for you. Hey, look, the benefits of having sex without having babies, You have a higher immune response. So if you're actively involved in sexual activity, you tend to have a stronger immune response. so you have less sick days. It lowers your blood pressure. It improves bladder control for women. And the other thing, it boosts your libido. Having sex makes you want to have sex more. Who'd have thought? It's an excellent exercise. It can lessen pain. It lowers heart attack risk. It can also, there's still, jury's kind of out on this, but it's likely to lower prostate cancer risk. It's a stress reliever, and it helps improve sleep. So you have all of these things. Mental health, yes. You know, if you have anxiety and you end up getting involved in sexy times, could lower the anxiety and boost those endorphins and make your brain feel really, really lovely. So, I mean, there's lots of reasons to have sex outside of making babies. Bonding with another person, yes. So, I mean, it's just, if it's just solely for procreation, I mean, the statistics and the odds show you that, you know, hey, you know, it's only 15 to 25% likelihood that you're going to get pregnant in any given month. You have to, you know, it increases, you know, the more you have sex in the month, and with each month you do that, you know, but in any given month, if you're not actively trying to have a baby, I mean, and then you have all of the fertility issues that women can face, polycystic ovarian disease, and you have irregular cycles, and so, and women who can't ovulate altogether, and then you have certain conditions of the womb, you know, so you have lots of infertility issues. So if sex was exclusively for having babies, why do we have all of these fertility issues? And why is it that the odds of getting pregnant are only 15 to 25% in a given month? So, biologically speaking, and statistically speaking, if it was solely for having babies, we wouldn't have sex so often, because then we would have babies all over the place. You see what I mean? It just this might be one of those concepts for some people that's a boomerang concept. That's a term I use, where it has to fly around the room and hit them in the head a bit later. There are some people in our society that this would be a boomerang concept for. They don't quite understand. They think, well, technically, sex is for having children, but statistically, it's not so great at that. Statisticians would probably be like, you know, the odds are not so great that you're going to get pregnant in any given month. But yet, we do have measures in place, because unwanted pregnancies are a thing that happens sometimes. And because of things that we have in place with education, awareness, birth control means, those actually lower the incidences of unwanted pregnancies, education being a big leader in that. So we got to kind of keep going as a society, and working towards moving in that direction of a greater understanding of sexuality. So it's time for society to kind of step up and realize that sexuality is not binary. Science is honing in on what forms our sexuality, but society continues to push archaic ideas that sexuality is only for a man and a woman, cis man and cis woman, and that people should be ashamed and shamed for engaging in sexual activity outside of these societal standards. Now, Dr. Taylor Burroughs, somebody was wondering when I was going to bring her up. She blocked me on Twitter. And there was this misogynistic weightlifter guy. I don't even remember his name. I asked him all kinds of questions. He was pushing this idea that women needed to not have sex with other men, and they need to be more ladylike in order to get a decent guy. And I'm sitting here going, I don't care how handsome you think you are. I wouldn't go out with you because you sound like a jerk. So, that's kind of like, what's my preference for men? Can't be stupid and can't be a jerk. That's my preference. You know, if you're a dude, if you're stupid, you know, if you're bigoted, no. If you're racist, jerk, whatever, no. I don't care how much you bench. You know? And so the way that his rhetoric was going is that women needed to do certain things to be more attractive to men in order to get the right guy. And I'm going, if I'm having to go out of my way to do things to make you like me, then you're probably a jerk and you're not a great guy. So I shouldn't have to modify what I do to make myself more attractive to you. You either like me or you don't. And it's kind of weird. Hello, Zalrock. So I found it interesting. So Dr. Taylor Burrows, look her up on Twitter. She shames women. She actually goes out of her way to shame women. I did a bit of digging on her, and I was wondering why it is that she was reinforcing this misogynistic attitude that women should not have sex with men, and they should save themselves for the right kind of man. And I'm like, first of all, how do you know what the right kind of man is? In a world full of predatory guys, they can act a certain way and then completely flip the script on you later on. And then all of a sudden you've been involved with this horribly abusive person and you've wasted this time with this person. But I should be shamed in the end for being with a jerk. She has a PhD from Barry University, which is a Catholic school that was formed by nuns and monks, and that's her where her PhD is from. Don't quite know what her PhD is in. Tried to look it up. She did a TED Talk, and right now I believe she's in the Cayman Islands, but she can practice therapy in Florida. But her rhetoric is extremely shaming of women, saying essentially that they shouldn't have sex with men in general, except for guys that they really, 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 really feel a connection with. And I'm going, why are you shaming women? And then she'll go through and say, well, what did you expect to happen when you had sex with a guy like that? And I'm going, you are reinforcing a misogynistic attitude that women should do what they can to make themselves more attractive to certain types of men. And recently, here's an example for you how that is completely flawed, that if you present yourself in a certain way, you'll attract a certain type of man and it'll be a better mate. The more ladylike you are and the more nice you are, you'll get a better man and all that. So it's just recently, I just saw this yesterday, guys. There's a film coming out about Ted Bundy where Zac Efron is playing Ted Bundy. And the trailer makes him out to be like, it feels like a Guy Ritchie film. If you're not familiar with Guy Ritchie, he did Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He did The Man from U.N.C.L.E. He's got a really cool vibe, and it's kind of groovy vibe with really cool music. So they've taken Zac Efron, who is inherently attractive, okay, and they're doing a film about Ted Bundy where looks like this really cool dude that evaded law enforcement for a while. Now, if you're not familiar with Ted Bundy, one of probably the worst serial killer and rapist of women in modern times, attractive, extremely attractive, had money, went to Yale, okay? Attractive, had money, went to Yale, all the things you would associate with a super good catch of a dude. Raped and killed women. They still don't know how many women he's killed. And in the most brutal fashion possible. So, if we're going with this mentality that women need to make themselves more attractive for the wealthy, good-looking, educated men, Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy. Nobody saw that coming. Even the woman who wrote a book about him, the women involved with him that were supportive of him couldn't see this coming because he was really, really good at charming other people to rally behind him because he was super amazing to them. So you can't associate the way a man treats you if he's super amazing with that. It's mind-blowing that we still put responsibility on women to make themselves more attractive and better for men to want us more. And I'm going, we can't do that. So Dr. Taylor Burroughs, she is reinforcing this idea that women have to be a certain way in order for men to want us and treat us better. And she blocked me on Twitter. She never responded to anything I said. Then she went through my follower list and started blocking people that I follow and who follow me. They never even engaged with her. She just started blocking them, which I find, a little bit, you got a thin skin. How is it that you have a PhD and have a ridiculously thin skin? So it's strange. It's strange. So be careful about who you get advice from. If you are looking for sexual advice or you're confused about your sexuality, please feel free to hit me up, because I have engaged with wonderful therapists. Memphis Sipian on Twitter. I've interviewed her before when I was working on my audio podcast. She is amazing, and she works a lot with the trans community. She works a lot with LGBTQIA teens, especially individuals who are struggling, who receive a lot of abuse from society for being who they are. We as a society have to do better. I mean, when you look at the incidents, and you got Dr. Taylor Burroughs, who's putting is essentially victim blaming. She's blaming women for not being more attractive or not behaving more ladylike in order to get more decent men. And I'm going, no, that's actually taking us back a lot. You have that, and then she's completely just thrown out all of the other types of sexuality. Mostly just focusing on heterosexuality and cis heterosexuality. She's completely thrown out all the other forms. So be careful where you get your information from when it comes to human sexuality. And if you're struggling, let me know, because I have talked and spoken with different therapists that I found to be extremely informative, not judgmental. I can put you in contact with people who are not going to do more harm than good. I'll have to dive in a bit more about Dr. Taylor Burroughs in another episode, but this particular episode is mostly about the importance of recognizing that human sexuality is a spectrum, and especially when you're dealing with the high incidence of suicide among men. We have an increased rate of suicide among individuals who are not heterosexual in the LGBTQIA world. And International Men's Day focuses on mental health of men, and being that suicide is the #1 killer of men in our world. And so we need to recognize that, and that people are taking their lives for the fact that their sexuality is not being recognized by society. They're being shunned by their families and their friends. So we need to boost awareness. It is time we educate ourselves on the diversity of the world and boost understanding that humanity is a spectrum in just about everything, pretty much everything. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. So it's important for us to recognize that and realize that there is a space for everyone. Every sexuality. It doesn't have to be so cut and dry. So I'm wrapping all of this up. You guys have been awesome about this. Hi. And if you have questions, if you ever have questions, you can always hit me up on Twitter. You can hit me up on Facebook, facebook.com/ScientistMel. I'll show you all of my websites and stuff where you can go. I will post all of these slides associated with this content on ScientistMel.com. Oh, hello, Naples, Florida. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Geek Room. Hey guys, we've been talking about sex. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about sex. Sexuality, human sexuality. I just sang you guys a song. It is sad. It's sad that people feel like they have to take their lives because they can't be accepted for who they are. That shouldn't even be a thing. That should not, we're in the 21st century. We should not be taking our lives because of not being accepted for who we love. You know? That shouldn't be a thing. We need to support each other. We need to support each other. So, yes. So this has been awesome. So we are coming towards the end of this particular one. I started late because I'm a silly muggins. Trying to sort out all the technical. I said hello, Paul. Hello, Paul. You guys are awesome. And I also want to say thank you for watching my stuff. And I have monetization now. If you like what I do, you know, you can throw a couple bucks at me. I'm trying to see if I can get a better computer system to see if that'll help with the stream. Also, I'm putting a call out to people who want to help produce my show because I want to be able to stream it in the evening and do This Week in BS with Katie Joy. She's awesome. And so on Thursday, we talked about the vagina. And all of the things that women seem to think that they can shove up there that's bad science and bad for you. So This Week in BS, that show is called This Week in Bad Science. So we talk about the latest and greatest and all the bad science things. We are bringing back spirited science with Andy from Science Sunday. So we're trying to sort out what the next episode will be. That'll probably be twice a month. Yay! Thank you, Gemma. So there's that. So we've got This Week in BS, we've got Spirited Science, and I'm still working on Science Sunday School, where I talk about the newest developments in science for you in a short little series. And I do have my ScientistMel shorts, which are shortened versions of the longer live streams. All right, so let's take a look at what we've been talking about. We have been talking about the types of sexuality, what influences sexuality, and how society has an effect on human sexuality. So I'm going to take a moment to thank my patrons. I need to put NA in here. Let me add them right now while I'm thinking about it. NA, thank you for being here. My latest patron. I'm going to add them right now. Put them right here. NA. I thought I put you in here already. Someone do this now. Watch me as I change. Oh, there you are. I did put you there. You were just lower on the bottom and couldn't see. So that's alright. NA. I thought. There's that one. Huh. Wait, cancel. I pulled it up on the wrong one. Alright, is it that one? Is it this one? Alright. Here we go. Where'd it go? See, I have too many windows open, so I'm going to pull this up. Pull it up. There is NA. There you are. I knew I had it somewhere. I just couldn't figure out where it was. Alright, so James, Jen, Carl, Melanie, Patrick, Daniel, Stephen, Paula, Carrie, Cersei, Keith, Duke, James, NA, Andy, Zachary, Tony, Bo, Stephen, Sarah, Chris, Graham, Dragnot, Godless Iowan, Jennifer, Richard, Doc, Fearsome, and Neil. Thank you for contributing to my Patreon. My patrons, if there's a topic they want me to talk about, I just do it. So this topic was one of my patrons. I don't know if they want me to say who, but they're like, I want you to talk about this. So they get first pick on any topics that I talk about on this show. So thank you. You help me keep the lights on. I've got new cameras. I've got new lights. I pay for advertising to boost scientific literacy. My website costs money. So all of the different things that I do, it actually costs a bit of chunk of change, but they help me keep the lights on. So I want to thank you for doing that for me. I really appreciate it. You can find me on ScientistMel.com, Patreon, Periscope, YouTube, all of these different things, Facebook.com/ScientistMel. You can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet. It's not that hard to find me. So if you haven't checked out any of my sites, please do. I'm actually on Twitch as well, twitch.com/ScientistMel. So you can find me there as well. So much to do. And this has been the science of human sexuality. Woohoo! It's okay. Oh goodness. So hi. You have a beautiful one. Alright, so I can chat with you guys for a few more minutes before we sign off. Let's see. Click that bell to get more mail. Yes! Fun! Science Sunday School. Watching from New Zealand. Thank you, Sprojo. All things science. Yeah, so do like, share, and subscribe my stuff. And if you're a teacher, I'm going to be working on stuff. I always work on stuff for teachers. So I make little videos to help them. I've had a teacher actually recently request that I talk about solutions. Super saturated and just regular types of solutions and molarity. So you might see little things pop up from time to time on my channel that I've made just for teachers. So teachers, you're important, and I'm happy to make content for you to use in your classrooms. And you can go to my website and get more slides, as well as the stuff that I do and have done when I was a teacher as well. So it's all stuff that I do for you guys. Hi everyone, hello. Science Sunday School, yes. So I'm hoping to bring that up pretty soon. I'm trying to build it all together and get all of that. So you guys have been awesome. So thank you again for being here. I'm glad you guys have you got a good education on the lady bits. So yeah, do check out This Week in BS. I'm hoping to work out all the technical difficulties. There was some video issues, but the sound works great. And I'm going to see if I can't post a better video of that, and we'll work on that. So thank you guys for being here with me. And I'm going to kind of end it with Mr. Rogers. You always make each day special for me. You know how? Just your being you. And I love you just the way that you are. And I like you just the way that you are. So hit me up on any of the social medias, because I'll be there. And you guys have a fantastic Saturday. And I'll see you next Thursday with This Week in BS. And next Saturday, I'll be posting a poll soon for the science of for next Saturday. So vote and tell me what it is that you want me to talk about, because this show is for you guys and for your education. So whatever you want to learn, that's what I talk about. So I will see you guys next time. Talk to you later. Thank you for being here. Squishy science hugs. Bye.